Silvia Moreno-Garcia has been around for quite a while now, and if you don't know who she is, you should definitely have checked her out. But she's a fantastically lyrical author who's just got this wonderful ability to create presence and atmosphere. And when I saw she was doing a mansion-based horror novel set in the 1930s, all I could do was drool and say, "Give me." And so I was really pleased when it finally came out, and it did not disappoint. Next Came Gothic follows a young woman named Noemi who is basically sent by her father across country by train to go rescue her cousin. They don't really know what's wrong, but her cousin has no family outside of hers. And so Noemi goes to try to see if her cousin's going crazy in her new marriage, why her cousin isn't visiting or talking to them, and basically if something hinky's going down. Noemi herself is like that classic stereotype of like beautiful and smart and like quippy, and she's a socialite. And she's kind of fantastic in that way, in that you see her be simultaneously kind of languid and loose, but also unrepentant and willing to challenge in a way that isn't just for fun, right? She's not just trying to go about her business and kind of flounce about her social situation and enjoy that. She wants to do more with her life. She wants to go to university and to study. She's really trying to pursue that, but has, of course, the limitations of the 1930s, which is its own set of problems. When Noemi arrives at her cousin Katerina's new house, well, things are not great. They tell her her cousin has TB and her cousin's kind of going crazy and no one will get help from a real doctor. Well, a real doctor that isn't the family doctor. And her new cousins-in-law are real creepy. Of course, she goes about uncovering a host of family secrets in this deep, dark, mysterious mansion that's hidden away in the mountains, and none of the locals ever come up. It's got a very "we have always lived in the castle" feel in that sense, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved the setting. I think Moreno-Garcia does this beautiful job of creating atmosphere and consistently making you like feel a little bit of a low-level creep, even when things aren't necessarily suspenseful. There's just this very sinister undertone to even the most innocuous of scenes that I think makes the story very good. It's not the kind of story that's going to jump scare you. Instead, it's about getting into your head, and that's the kind of horror I love. But instead of going on and on and on about Moreno-Garcia and how I love the character development, which I do, and how I love the setting, which I do, and how I love everything basically about the plot, which I do, I'm gonna tell you 3 things that I really liked about this story that I think probably won't get the kind of attention that, well, they should. So first, I love the way that Noemi is put against this kind of idea of epigenetics and eugenics and social Darwinism. Her host while she's there is this really craggy old man from England who's living in the mountains in Mexico and is reading some real not scientifically sound stuff on genetics. And so she's faced with that, and at the same time, it's not just the idea of pure racism, right? You are Hispanic in origin and I am white in origin, and so therefore we clash. There's this idea that even within like races, that there's a subcategory of people who are better than, i.e. colorism. One of the very first things that Noemi faces is this dinner conversation about how she's so much darker than her cousin, and is she really going to be like genetically good for the world, essentially? It's sketch. And Noemi has to call her host on it in a way that is still polite because she has to stay there for an indefinite period of time. And I think that that nuance is so gold. One of the things I really liked in this story was the way that Moreno-Garcia brings class to kind of the forefront of the conversation. In a lot of these kind of classic feeling Gothic horror movies or stories, there's this underlying sense of class, right? the villagers hate the people who live in the mansion because they're rich and they never come down and they're, you know, holier than thou. Or, you know, it's a man who has unlimited wealth at his resources and so he can do terrible scientific experiments or something like that. And Moreno-Garcia takes kind of some of those similar premises and explicitly talks about them, explicitly talks about the ways that the underclass in this like small, you know, mountain town are being abused by the people in power, and makes the characters talk about them, which I think is an interesting dynamic in and of itself because they're, you know, all socialites, kind of challenging this cranky old man on both race and class is kind of, it's a little bit of a joy. But I thought that that's interesting, and I like the added element of it. I like that it's not just issues of poverty. She talks about issues involved with kind of the dignity of how we treat labor, and I think it's done very well. And then the third thing I like is, well, I'll be honest, it's a little bit of a Brieism. It's not quite a spoiler. There's a lot of like moss, mold, mushroom growth talk that goes on in this, and I kind of love that. Like, I'm kind of here for talking about the differences in mycelial structures, and that's just a Brisa nerd thing. Point being, if you are in the mood for something spooky, or if you are making your Halloween spook list, this should be on, and you won't regret it. I love the feel, I love the atmosphere and the characters. I thought the plot was pretty good. It doesn't get bogged down in romance. It's pretty solid as far as, you know, SFF spookies go. I hope you're having a fantastic reading week. You know the drill. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, do that thing. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on Patreon, and I will see you next time.